before nangyari yung journey. Tapos bigla nahiwalay ako sa kanya ng matagal for 6 months. So medyo hurtful sa kanya, tsaka sa akin din, namimiss ko sila masyado, especially my wife.
Well, these interviews can make people nervous and can make people feel a little bit
Of
desperate.
course. I mean, you know what? I was denied once, that's why I told myself I would never ever apply for a US visa ever again, because for me it was such a very, very bad experience. Don't get me wrong, but because
The courtroom was silent, the air thick with tension. All eyes were on Arnel Pineda, who sat motionless, his hands trembling slightly. The judge's voice echoed through the room, delivering a verdict that would change everything. As the final words left the judge's lips, Arnel's body gave way, collapsing onto the cold, unforgiving floor. Gasps filled the room. Some people rushed forward. Others stood frozen in shock. What had led to this moment? How had a man who once stood before thousands on a brightly lit stage now fallen to his knees in a dark courtroom? For years, Arnel Pineda stood on stage as the lead singer of Journey, giving fans the music they loved. His voice filled stadiums, and his energy kept the band alive. But while the audience cheered and the lights shined bright, a different reality was unfolding behind the scenes. The pressure was overwhelming, the expectations impossible, and the cost of keeping up with it all was more than anyone knew. From the moment Arnel joined Journey, the comparisons never stopped. Some people welcomed him, happy that the band's classic hits were still being performed. Others refused to accept him, saying he could never be Steve Perry. No matter how many shows he did or how well he sang, some fans and critics always saw him as just a stand-in. He tried to ignore it, pouring everything he had into each performance. Every night, he pushed himself to the limit, knowing that millions were watching, waiting to judge whether he was good enough. He refused to let anyone down. The band's tours were long and exhausting. City after city, night after night, Arnel gave his all on stage. The schedule was relentless, with barely any time to rest. The constant travel, rehearsals, and back-to-back shows took a serious toll. He was always running on empty, but stopping wasn't an option. The fans came expecting greatness, and he couldn't let them leave disappointed. He sang his heart out, even when his body begged for a break. But no matter how hard he tried, the wear and tear began to show. By 2023, it was clear something was wrong. Singing the songs that once felt natural became a struggle. The high notes that had always been his strength started slipping away. His voice, the thing that had carried him this far, was starting to give out. He fought against it, trying everything to keep going. But years of strain had taken their toll, and the battle was becoming harder each day. The world saw Arnel as a rock star, the man who kept Journey's music alive. But few knew the sacrifices he made to stay on that stage. The weight of expectations, the exhaustion of non-stop performances, and the challenge of maintaining his voice had pushed him beyond his limits. He had spent years proving himself, but at what cost? The stage that once had felt like home had become a place of struggle, leaving him to wonder how much longer he could keep going. At first, he thought it was just fatigue. I just need a break, he told himself. But no amount of rest seemed to help. The problem lingered, and soon others noticed. His voice wasn't the same. Bandmates exchanged worried glances, crew members whispered backstage, and even longtime fans began to comment. Something sounds different, they said. He pushed through, determined to prove nothing was wrong, but deep down, he knew something had changed. As the weeks passed, his voice grew weaker. Singing the high notes became harder, and no amount of warm-ups could fix it. The energy he once had on stage started to fade. Concerned, the band urged him to see a doctor. He resisted, at first, not wanting to admit that something serious might be happening. But when even simple conversations became strained, he had no choice. The diagnosis came like a punch to the gut. Cancer. And not just any kind. Laryngeal cancer. The kind that attacks the very thing he relied on most. The one thing that had lifted him from poverty, taken him across the world, and given him a place in rock history, his voice, was slipping away. He sat in silence, barely hearing the doctor's words about treatment options. Surgery, radiation, therapy, none of it guaranteed he'd ever sing the same way again. News spread quickly within the band. Conversations behind closed doors grew tense. Could he recover? How long would it take? And the biggest question of all, what would happen to Journey? The band had faced tough decisions before, but this one was different. Arnel wasn't just a replacement singer anymore. He had become a part of their story, their family. Neil Schon, the band's guitarist and the man who had discovered Arnel's talent years ago, took the news the hardest. He had seen firsthand how much Arnel had sacrificed. He gave everything to this band, he told a close friend. But as painful as it was, the band had to face reality. The music couldn't stop. Fans were waiting. Concerts were booked. And no matter how much they wanted to give Arnel time, the harsh truth remained. Journey had to move forward. Arnel, sitting alone with the weight of it all, knew it too. His future was uncertain, and for the first time in years, he wasn't sure what would come next. The announcement came in late 2023. Arnel was stepping away from Journey. The statement was brief, vague. Health reasons, it said. Fans flooded social media with messages of support, heartbreak, and confusion. Some suspected the truth, others speculated. But one thing was clear, his time with Journey was over. The concerts, the world tours, the screaming crowds, all of it had come to an abrupt stop. Back home in the Philippines, Arnel faced a different battle. The treatments were brutal. The chemotherapy drained him. The radiation burned him from the inside out. The voice that had once soared across stadiums was now barely more than a whisper. He spoke only when necessary, each word feeling like a dagger to his throat. "I don't know if I'll ever sing again," he admitted to a close friend. The medical bills piled up. Despite years of success, money was tight. Touring had kept him afloat, and without it, financial stress added to his growing list of problems. Lawsuits followed, disputes over contracts, unpaid fees, and old debts resurfacing. The legal battles were exhausting, pulling him into a fight he had no strength left for. And then came the final blow. The courtroom appearance changed everything. Standing before the judge, Arnel listened as the details of his case unfolded. His mind raced, his heart pounded, and then the verdict came. It was too much. His legs gave out, his vision blurred, and everything went black. The next thing he knew, he was being carried out of the courtroom, his body weak, his mind barely hanging on. As the news broke, the world reacted in shock. "What happened to Arnel Pineda?" headlines screamed. Fans demanded answers. Journey remained silent, not knowing what to say. Neil Schon, who had once called Arnel the best thing to happen to the band, refused to comment. Rumors spread. Some claimed he had lost everything. Others speculated that the legal battle was only the beginning of a deeper, darker downfall. But those closest to him knew the truth. This was a man who had been fighting his whole life. First against poverty, then against doubt, and now against an enemy he couldn't outrun. Arnel's story was never just about music. It was about resilience, survival, and an unbreakable spirit. And though his voice may have been taken from him, his legacy would not be. The songs he sang, the lives he touched, the dreams he inspired, they would live on, even if he never stepped on a stage again. For now, he rests. The road ahead is uncertain, the future unclear. But one thing remains true. Arnel Pineda is a fighter. And as long as there is breath in his body, he will keep going, no matter how dark the days may be. "Don't stop believing," he once sang. And perhaps even now, he holds on to those words, hoping that one day the music will return. So what are your views on this? Do let us know in the comments section below. And for more such amazing videos, please do subscribe to our channel.